Hi, this is Steve Rothstein from Rothstein Model Trains, and we have a new video. This one's a little bit different because it's not model trains and it's not our layout. The weekend of Easter weekend, Good Friday, we decided to take the family up to Dallas from San Marcos by Amtrak so that the grandkids would be able to say they've ridden the train, and they were getting interested. I wanted to show them what it was like. This is a video based on that trip, some of the stuff we saw, and how the trains rode. So let's see the trains. So this is our trip. This is the San Marcos train station. You'll see it's just a low concrete platform. There is a nice building up front where they merged it with a bus station, Greyhound. This is our train pulling into the station, a GE P42DC locomotive.
Yeah, it's not
A very interesting problem. The locomotive here, the train pulls in far enough to the locomotive pulls out actually, and the train was too long. The first car stops. They stop where the first car can let people in and out because that's their sleeper car. Then they have to move the train so the first one's pulled out of the station, so the back end is all at the station. This is Austin. It's our next stop after San Marcos. You'll see us going through the south side of Austin up to their train station. As you can see, we come in from a less well-developed neighborhood to start with. We get to downtown Austin and you start to see some of the construction and the new buildings, shops and so on, and the area starts to clean up. It's not really a bad area. Once we leave Austin, we cut east and go to Hutto and Taylor. We actually do go through the town, but this is Texas, and rural towns, small towns in the suburbs, go rapidly from town to farmland. This is what Hutto looked like, most of it. Then we head north to Temple. Temple's real interesting. You've got a Burlington Northern Santa Fe rail yard next to the Amtrak station on the one side. On the other side, you have the old train station, which is now a station and museum. You saw some of the antique cars, train cars sitting there. Turns a new station into a basic concrete platform out by the rail. Here's one of the older trains that they left on display. We did not get time to look at the trains out there. One of these days I intend to get back up there and see them. I especially want to get a much closer look at that steam locomotive right there. I like steam engines. And as we pull out, you see the old depot. You see another shot of the BNSF yard where they did a lot of cleanup work on locomotives and prepping them. We skipped part of it, but we go through Fort Worth, which has a nice train station, Union Station, multiple stations, and then we pull into Dallas, which also has a nice Union Station, which is multiple rail lines. Both of them use the DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, and the Trinity Railway Express, I believe is the correct name. It's the Trinity area commuter trains. Here's a shot of the TRE and their locomotive paint scheme and their trains. It's a nice commuter train, comfortable, high speed, relatively high speed for a commuter line, but it is a diesel locomotive. There you'll see the DART train pulling in. DART is all electric system, very light rail, very modern, from what I understand, very clean and efficient and well run. While we were waiting our train to go home, going back into Dallas on Saturday. This one you can tell, two locomotives, bigger train coming in south. And the station's long enough so that we had a room for it to pull in and stop. Didn't have to move after it let the first car out or the last car or anything like that. One of the interesting parts of Dallas is that the Union Station had such a homeless problem. The building itself is locked. As we came in, they were willing to open it for us as we got off the train, but most of the time it's just kept locked and nobody gets to go into the station building itself. But this is our train home. Got a nice long look at it while we waited for it. Get ready. We got on the train, we actually got on the way home, sat in the rearmost car, which let us do something that we couldn't do on the way up, and that is we shot video out the back window so you could see the track and everything at where we had been. One of the interesting parts I noticed, this was a double line, 2 tracks for part of the way, and I thought that was a lot more common. The trip showed me, and people have told me this before, but the most common way to run rail is a single line with sidings every so often that a slower train can pull into, or if someone's coming from the other direction, it can pull into. And we'll show you that in a second. But there you see that one line just kind of dead-ended, and we're down to one route. Overall, there's not a whole lot of scenery to see between Dallas and Fort Worth. It's built up. The Metroplex gets its name for a reason. It really is effectively one city, even though there's a dozen there, and you get upset if you say it's one. But it's urban all the way through. Here you see the one side pulling out to form a siding. Actually, I think this one, yeah, we're coming up to a station for the commuter rail that Amtrak just goes through, doesn't stop, but the commuter rails will pull over and stop, and that's why it pulled out on a siding there. That way someone else can go through. We should see that siding coming merging back in any second now. Interestingly, they can use that siding for a short freight train to go through while the passengers are passing that, like for Amtrak. But you can also see that there was a very narrow green belt on each side of the rails, and the rest of it's just urban city all the way through. This is the arrival back in Fort Worth on the way home. This is another train where we were sitting there on the northbound train came in. I think it was northbound. The interesting part to me was this locomotive on the tail end of that was number 17, which is the locomotive that moved us from San Marcos to Dallas the day before. And they just shifted it around and sent it on another train heading the other direction, or continuing east or west as they go both. But it does answer the question, how do you clean a train? I had never seen or heard of this before, but Amtrak has these little modified go-kart type things or utility vehicles that have a water tank, a soap tank, and a big spinning brush like you see in a car wash. And instead of the train going through it drives along the side of the train and just cleans and buffs the side of the train very well. I guess it makes sense. You can't really well drive a locomotive through a car wash. Fort Worth also has the BNSF yard by it, which I did not realize. Most of the train rail in Texas is UP, I'd say probably a quarter of it is the Burlington Northern line. And here you see the rails pulling out of Fort Worth. You'll see that while we were there, of course, the station has multiple lines. Multiple lines for us, for passengers, for the freight, for the various commuter lines going through. And it does all end up merging down into one line. You can see it starting to merge there, down into just two lines here, or three. And now we're down to two lines headed where we were. And you can see them merging in. Now we're down to from 6 to 2. This one we actually had a freight train pull over and stuck in the siding while we passed it. We'll be able to see in a minute proof that it's really sitting in the siding as we go past the end of it. And the siding comes back into merge into our lane. This is not a train moving in the opposite direction, just sitting there. Now we're back down to one rail. This one's an interesting section of rail and highway. We're back in Austin. This is the Mopac Freeway or Expressway. And it's named after the railroad company that originally owned all the land and still owns this line, the Missouri Pacific. That railroad company doesn't, whoever inherited from them when they got merged, owns the line. But when they decided to build the highway, they got permission to use the right-of-way and put it right in the middle of the highway. You have active train lines. And they are used for both Amtrak and freight on a regular basis. And a lot of times, they're the only thing moving in Austin. Pulling out Austin Station, we had a problem where we had a little power not getting to the passenger cars. Give you a lot of faith. The engineer came on when they finally got it fixed. We were driving with no air conditioning and no lights in the passenger cars. And he comes on when they finally got it fixed and said, well, we apologize for the problem, but we had to get outside and jiggle a couple of cables to get it working. It took them about 20 minutes, and we finally got it working and headed home. And that's it.